Hey, it's Lynn, and today I'm coming at you with a book review of Love by Hanne Ørstavik, a Norwegian novella published in 1997 and translated into English by Martin Aitken in 2018. So the premise is almost deceptively simple. Vibeke is a single mother who has recently relocated with her young son John to a small remote village in northern Norway. It's the eve of John's 9th birthday, and the boy has convinced himself that if he slips out of the house for the evening, selling raffle tickets for his sports club door to door, his mother will have the time and space to bake him a birthday cake. It's an achingly ordinary hope for a child to have. What unfolds over the course of one cold winter night is the story of two people drifting through the dark in completely separate orbits. John wandering the neighborhood, encountering strangers, getting locked out of the house. Vibeke heading to the library, which is closed, and then gravitating towards a traveling carnival and a man that she meets there. The novel tracks both of them in near real time, shuttling between their inner worlds as the night deepens and a quiet, accumulating dread sets in. What gives the book its reputation as a literary object is its formal structure. Ørstavik doesn't separate John and Vibeke into chapters or even clearly marked sections. She moves between their perspectives fluidly, sometimes within the same paragraph, with no signposting and no hand-holding. The result is supposed to evoke the unbridgeable psychological distance between a mother and son who share a roof, but not much else. The title operates as irony, or at least as a question. What does love actually look like when it is this absent, this unconscious, this insufficient? It's a book that has been praised extensively, a National Book Award finalist for translated literature, voted one of the best Norwegian novels of the last quarter century. So I came in with a lot of expectations, and those expectations were, for me, largely unmet. Let me start with what I genuinely appreciated, because there is something here worth acknowledging. The book is extremely short, well under 200 pages, and it reads very quickly. There's a spare, cool quality to the prose, even in translation, that creates a real atmosphere. Northern Norway in winter, the snow underfoot, the darkness, the low hum of isolation. Ørstavik conjures that world efficiently and with restraint. It has a texture of a place you can feel without having visited. That atmospheric quality is the book's most consistent strength, and I think readers who are drawn to Nordic literary fiction for its particular brand of quiet, icy unease will find something to appreciate here, because it's not nothing. But here's where things start to unravel for me. And the first issue is Vibeke herself. Now, I want to be careful here because I think there's a meaningful distinction between a character being unlikable and a character being completely underdrawn. Unlikable mothers in fiction can be extraordinary. They can be devastating, illuminating, even empathy generating when handled with depth. But Vibike's neglectfulness in this novel felt less like a portrait of a complicated inner life and more like a narrative given over to simply demonstrating her absence. She spends her evening pursuing a man who is barely interested in her, while her young son is outside alone in the dark, unable to get back into their house. And because Ørstavik withholds authorial judgment entirely, I kept waiting to feel something more than mild frustration, some deeper ache, some layered understanding of why Vibeke is the way that she is. But it never came. The character remained opaque in a way that felt to me less like restraint and more like a gap. And then there's the pacing, which, look, I really have a high respect for a quiet book. I read slow fiction. I am not someone who requires plot momentum to stay engaged for the most part, but Love is a book where very little happens, and what does happen carries very little weight, at least the way that it is written. John sells some raffle tickets. He visits a neighbor's house. He gets locked out. VBK talks to a man at a carnival. She drives around in his car for a while. The mundane is supposed to accrue into something devastating, and I think for some readers it does, but for me, it absolutely didn't. The whole reading experience felt like waiting for a door to open that never quite did. A nothing burger dressed up in very literary packaging. The POV shifts also are where the book lost me most technically. I understand the intention. These abrupt, unmarked jumps between VBK and John are meant to formally enact their connection and their disconnection simultaneously. It's a sophisticated idea on paper, but in practice, I found it genuinely disorienting in a way that didn't feel productive at all. I kept losing track of whose point of view I was in, and by the time I'd reoriented myself, the moment had passed. And there's a version of perspective fragmentation that draws you deeper into a story and makes that disorientation meaningful. But for me, this wasn't that version. I was never sure whether I was missing something or whether the confusion was simply an artifact of a structural choice that didn't quite pay off on the level of the reading experience. I lean toward the latter. And finally, I think this bothered me more than anything else. The ending offers no resolution. Now, ambiguity can be powerful. Open endings can linger in the best way, leaving you with something to turn over long after you've closed the book. But what Ørstavik does here felt less like earned ambiguity and more like an abrupt stop. The novel ends on the edge of what might be tragedy without confirming or examining or even sitting with that possibility. I closed the book feeling not haunted, but simply discontinued. Like the book just ended because it ran out of road. And when a book is this short and asks this much of you structurally, I think it needs to give you something definitive to hold at the end. And this didn't. Not for me. And so with that, I'm giving Love 2 out of 5 stars. I can see why it has its admirers. It's formally ambitious, atmospherically precise, and genuinely interested in difficult questions about what it means to love badly or inadequately. But between the opaque characterization, the slow burning plot that never quite ignites, the POV structure that confused me more than it illuminated, and an ending that left me with nothing to hold on to, this one just wasn't for me. If you're a fan of Nordic literary minimalism and you love form-driven fiction, you might experience this very, very differently from me. But if you need at least some narrative traction or emotional resolution, I'd temper your expectations. And so with that said, as always, thank you so much for watching. You are awesome, stay awesome, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!